Welcome back to KTN Prime. Thanks for staying with us. As hinted earlier, it's now time for the studio conversation right here as we evaluate some of the latest developments that are playing out on matters to do with governance and politics. And we'll just be borrowing from what President William Ruto had to say in a recently conducted interview with international media Al Jazeera as he was put to task to take stock of his 3 years in power. He gave himself an 8 out of 10, and we'll take a look at some of the issues he highlighted during that one-on-one conversation. Not just that, we saw a lot of developments happening over the weekend, starting on Friday with our Jubilee National Delegates Conference, where the former president and party leader Uhuru Kenyatta actually called his troops to order, and we'll equally take a look at the symbolism of Kalonzo's visit to the Opoda farm in Siaya following the passing on of the ODM leader Raila Odinga. Already in studio is Fanyamambo Kinuthia. He is a lawyer and doubles up as a political and governance analyst. Wakili, asante sana for your time. Karibu sana.
Thank you very much. I'm happy and honored to be here.
Thanks for your time. Equally waiting for Maliba Arnold. We'll let him join the conversation once he joins us right here in studio. He's a public policy analyst. But let's begin with evaluating what President William Ruto had to say, because he defended his administration's track record, saying the foundation has been set for sustainable growth through economic reforms, talk of industrial expansion and investment in key areas such as agriculture. He was speaking during an interview in Doha, Qatar, on Al Jazeera, while reflecting on Kenya's journey of transformation, highlighting the key gains made during his 3 years in office. Let's listen in to some of the excerpts during that particular interview.
You told at one point police to shoot protesters in the legs. Surely live fire is not something that should be used in protest. Do you regret those comments?
I don't regret those comments at all, because the law allows the police to use force when other people's lives are in danger.
Surely there are ways of doing that without using live ammunition.
That is according to you. I think the police know what they need to do, and it is the basis upon which the expectations of the people of Kenya have been very high. Have I met those expectations? I can confidently tell you that on a scale of 1 to 10, I have done 8.
Well, the president just reflecting on that shoot in the leg order, but he talked about so much more. And let me just give you a breakdown of what the president covered as we interact with Fanyamambo Kinuthia right here in studio. He confidently scored himself an 8 out of 10 in terms of meeting Kenyans' very high expectations of him, and the evidence to back these claims, he listed the fact that Kenya is growing economic-wise. He listed Kenya is the 6th largest economy in Africa. I think we jumped Ethiopia in the rankings, and he equally listed that NSE was voted as the best stock exchange in Africa. That's on matters to do with the economy. On fixing the agriculture, the president highlighted the increase in maize production by 50%, sugar sector reforms to ensure Kenya is self-sufficient, and on matters, that's on matters economy and agriculture. Just to give you a hint, we'll be taking a look at what he said on matters fixing unemployment a little bit later on. Let's start with matters economy. He gave himself an 8 out of 10, Fanyamambo. And of course, this is an A in any regard. And I don't know your reaction to this. Well, what's your analysis of the president's track record 3 years into the Kenya Kwanza administration?
Thank you very much. For the first time, I want to celebrate and actually support His Excellency the President, because I actually do not think he's doing it 8 out of 10. President William Ruto is doing it 9 out of 10. He's doing exceedingly well. He's doing abundantly well. The president has succeeded very well.
Succeeded in
now,
what?
number one, 9 out of 10 households in Kenya today have learned to cook hope for dinner and lies and serve to their children. 9 out of 10 hospitals in Kiambu have shut down. 9 out of 10 young children who are supposed to be in the university are at home. 9 out of 10 Kenyans do not agree with him when he says that he congratulates Samia Suluhu. 9 out of 10 Kenyans are saying one term. 9 out of 10 Kenyans are telling the president, actually, SHA is not working. 9 out of 10 Kenyans have decided and learned how to say, tutavumilia tu. 9 out of 10 Kenyans have woken up and said university funding model is not working. 9 out of 10 Kenyans do not know how they will take their children to school come January because, you know, the fees for junior secondary actually think that he has done well on that scorecard that I have given you.
Okay, that's interesting. But anyway, just a point of clarification. We had the Ministry of Education mention that that junior secondary fee hike is not really the truth. Well, they have a lot of explaining to do because of misinformation out there. But at the end of the day, you seem to be hinting that, you know, what the president is talking about, things being rosy when it comes to the economy, is not the reality. And the president has been quite vocal on this particular matter. Time and time again, he's defended his long-term vision of Kenya transforming into a fast world nation. We've heard him time and time again mention that within the next 20 to 30 years, that's the goal. And he criticized those shooting down these thoughts that they lack faith in Kenya's potential for rapid development. And one such critic is Rigathi Gachagua. Let's just listen in to what he had to say over the weekend on matters to do with Kenya being a fast world country.
Kazi ya matibabu Uhuru Kenyatta amefanya umeharibu. Biashara zote umeharibu. Watoto umesema wapigwe risasi kwa mguu. Biashara zote zimeharibika. Wewe Githinji unaambia wa Kenya ati wakupatie nafasi ati you can make Kenya a first world country. How?
All right, so on one side, we have members of the Kenya Kwanza administration painting a rosy picture, members of the United Opposition on the other side, making sure that they make their voices heard, that Kenya is not doing well economy-wise, and we're actually taking 5 steps backward and 3 steps forward. Where do you sit in this whole debate? Who's fooling who?
You know, I hear them mentioning Singapore.
Yeah.
And I think the only place they get it wrong is the spelling at the end. Because we are not making Kenya Singapore. We are making it Singapore. Very poor. I mean, Singapore did not get where it is by refusing to pay school fees for their children. Singapore did not get where it is by having a moribund health system that benefits a few rich people to the extent to the detriment of the population. Mm-hmm. When we look at some of the hospitals that were getting the SHA money and the records were there and they were aired for everybody, when I remember Aden Duale fighting with Honorable Anthony Kibagendi, it tells you cannot become Singapore by doing such bad manners. Kenya will not become Singapore by rationing electricity. I have never seen a country that developed by switching off its electricity and putting people in the dark. That's not what responsible governments do. We live on the equator. We haven't done much with our solar. So this facade that Kenya needs to become like another country is what is making us fail. Kenya needs to become like Kenya. Singapore looked at the circumstances of their lives and they did the things they needed to do as Singapore. If Kenya needs to succeed, for example, we cannot, ile gas alituambia ya 300, it was possible. We have not had a conversation about containerizing biogas. We have not had a conversation about using the sun because we are sitting at the equator. We have not had conversations that are uniquely Kenyan, and for us to do those things that show that we take cognizance of who we are as a nation, where we are placed geographically, and how we can benefit. What we are doing as a nation is copying those other nations and trying to do those things that those other nations did in order to develop. And we shall not get there because of following other people and what those other people did. We have to decide who we are as a country and what we want to become, and then come up with a framework that works for us and that one that looks like us.
Well, on matters education, he mentioned that education was in shambles. He made his argument saying that his administration has hired over 100,000 more teachers. His administration has built 23,000 more classrooms. His administration has rolled out new student funding model, and now all our universities are sustainable. Well, what's your take on matters education?
Sustainable universities have children at home for the last 6 months. That's how sustainable universities look like. The world is laughing at us. How do you have a sustainable university when for 6 months university students are at home? Is that what we call sustainability? You talk of increasing classrooms. Where have they increased the classrooms? Where do we see them? We still see congestion in most of our schools. I don't know what goes on in the president's mind when he tells us he's employed 100,000 teachers. We were trying to do our calculations. You just divide them by the 47 counties, and then you will see you have at least 2,000 teachers in every county. And if you cascade it down, Nairobi has got 17 constituencies. If you divide all the way to the ward level, 2,000 divided by 85 wards, are we seeing such numbers of teachers in our schools? Where are they? Why are we not feeling the impact? Why are parents still having to pay for BOM teachers, Board of Management teachers? Because that's what parents are doing to fill in the gap for the teachers that we do not have in these institutions. Okay. So there's a lot of figures being thrown right, left, and center. But luckily, the people to whom these figures are being thrown are keenly aware of what is wrong and what is not happening. And they are living in this country. And they're just waiting for the right time to come and tell you, Mr. President, thank you, but no.
Interesting. Allow me to appreciate the presence of Maliba Arnold, who's joined us. Asante sana for your time. He's a party leader, Progress Plus Alliance, and a public policy analyst. Maliba, as you're joining us, we were just evaluating what President Ruto had to say during that sit-down with the international media, Al Jazeera, where he was taking stock of the 3 years of the Kenya Kwanza administration. And I'd like to engage you on matters of fixing unemployment in the country. The president had a lot to say. He mentioned that he's rolled out the largest infrastructure development in Kenya, where up to 230,000 houses are under construction, 600,000 young people are employed in these jobs, and digital jobs, roughly 180,000 young people working in the digital ecosystem, and how his administration is setting up ICT hubs known as Ajira centers across the country. Equally mentioning how we're exporting labor, 430,000 is it, Kenyans who are employed in foreign countries through bilateral deals that have been signed by various countries. Well, what's your evaluation of President William Ruto's track record 3 years into his administration, just borrowing on the sentiments he shared?
I think I'd love to actually respond to his remarks before talking about his record. I think the president, we gave the wrong man the work of being a president. Because while speaking to Al Jazeera, of course, he said that Kenya is a third world country. The president doesn't know that we are not a third world country. We are not a third world country. As a man of figures and facts, he is not the president of this country. Otherwise, had he been the president of this country, he would have known that we are a lower middle income economy. We are not third world. We left third world during Kibaki's time. So probably he is running Kenya as a third world country. That is why his policies are not actually adding up. Otherwise, by using the word that he's going to take Kenya from third world to whatever, we already left that particular bit.
Okay. Well, allow us to take a short break right now. We'll be back with the deliberations right here in studio, just evaluating what the president had to say on his track record, but equally taking a look at other developments playing out in the country and regionally. Stay with us. You're watching KTN Prime.
Every now and then, fake news might pull a few strings, but when it comes to reporting the facts, there's only one tune we dance to, our own. For more than 100 years, The Standard has delivered insightful, fact-based journalism. And you can't fake that.
Bro, nakwambia tangu Kivu shinde gari kutoka kwa gari. Mimi hata nashindwa rada ni gani. Kivu.
Rana ni gani utaki kushuka hii gari bana? Angalia hata msupa manze. Kwa nini nyumba? Nyumba. Wacha nikuoneshe.
Pia wewe unaweza beba ukibetika. Kila wiki kuna ma 55-inch smart TVs masenke, yani manduthi za kubeba. Na kwa grand prize kuna 2 brand new Suzuki Balenos. Na mse mmoja tu atabeba Isuzu 33-seater minibus. So kama fomu yako ni kuchambua ball, kucheza kasino ama crash games, jua kila bet, win or lose, ina count. Na hii season unaweza beba ukibetika. Betika, chukua lamba bingwa.
Kuwa mkono ambao unalima ardhi.
How do you maintain the quality?
Once we sow our seeds like we are doing, we will cover them. And then after here, now we give them some days to rest. Once they germinate, there is the nutrition part. Now at the end of once they are germinated, you come here, you check the germination percentage, how it is. One thing you as a farmer back at home that you need to be very precise is irrigation. The first few days of our seeds, for it to germinate, everything must be in line. Lazima zote ziwe zinatoshana. Mwangaza, maji na you as the farmer, you must keep on keeping an eye on the tree.
Five bob? These days it doesn't get you much. But now, just 5 shillings unlocks any premium story on the Standard. These are stories that go beyond the ordinary, exclusive, high value, and only on the Standard Insider. Choose your story anytime, anywhere for just 5 bob. Bobeana 5 bob. Big stories, small price. Visit www.standardmedia.co.ke and subscribe today.
Welcome back. You're watching KTN Prime. We're continuing with the deliberations right here in studio. I'm joined by Fanya Mambo Kinuthia, a lawyer and a public policy analyst, and the party leader, Progress Plus Alliance, Maliba Arnold, as we evaluate what the president had to say during a recently held Al Jazeera interview as he was reflecting on the 3-year administration of the Kenya Kwanza government. Maliba, I cut you short as you finalize on matters to do with what the president had to say.
If it was a rally, of course, I would have said money has been poured to ensure that my point does not get home.
Apologies. Yeah. Proceed.
But quickly, I was saying that I watched the interview. The president was full of contradictions. In one aspect, saying he doesn't have the power to send the police, or rather to order the police what to do. And in the second one, saying the police know what to do and he does not regret what he said. So too much internal contradiction, but that is just his personality. Sometimes I tend to think that probably the president has got a dark triad personality. So many contradictions and quite a lot of violence inside, because in one time, or rather, with one hand he says this, on the other side of the lips he says a different thing. But then, let's start with figures. The president in his interview said that he's going to take Kenya from third world to middle income or wherever. What the president forgot, or probably that's what he knows, that Kenya is not a third world country. Alienda kutuchomea huko majuu. We are not third world. We left third world. Kibaki took us from third world and took us to middle income. So even our classing and how we are classified, Kenya is a lower middle income economy. So probably the president has been running a third world economy. That is why he's actually been running around with his third world strategies and policies, and that's why it's not working. Otherwise, we are not that country he said he did. Okay. Of course, he gave himself 8 out of 10. That's why I would actually say the president has got a dark triad personality. Because knowing exactly, he even went further and said that he has won Gen Zs back to himself. Even a mad person would not say that. So, if you were to say, from the way he assessed himself, the president lives in a separate and parallel universe. He doesn't live with the rest of us. Because if he lived around here, he would know how businesses are performing. The best barometer of an economy is businesses. He spoke about the new funding model. The new funding model, plus so many other policies that he's brought in place, have actually been put on the ice by the courts. So they are not working. The universities are closing. For the longest time, we've had, for the first time, we actually have seen the people in academia giving us entertainment. You saw how well the Maseno University lecturers were making their moves. As you know, when the academia got on strike to a point that they become creatives, anyway, in future, even if journalists want to go on strike, they should actually benchmark with Maseno University. So there's not so much to say actually about the president's statement out there, other than alituchomea kutuita third world, and we are not. That is a fact. Kibaki took us out of that. Also means that he probably doesn't know the country he's running, and giving figures that are mad, including say that he's brought back Gen Zs to himself. He does not regret ordering them to be shot. As in, what I don't know how the editors of that, the footage they took, actually worked around to make a show that flows.
Interesting. On matters governance, President William Ruto had a couple of things to say. He distanced himself from the growing regional concerns about democratic backsliding in East Africa, adding that democracy in Kenya remains secure under his leadership. And this is coming in the backdrop of sustained pressure from human rights bodies. Just taking a look at what's happening in the East African republics. Talk to us about the space, the shrinking democratic space. Are you seeing similarities between Tanzania, Uganda, and Kenya, or is Kenya still the big brother when it comes to proper democratic space?
Thank you. I think to start with, Tanzania is bad news. It's a total insult to everything that everybody ever fought for. And I wish to remind Mama Samia Suluhu that we had the Maji uprising, where people were told by Kinjekitile Ngwale that he'll give them magical waters, and if they go, the British bullets will not finish them. And the British killed very many of them. But these are the great-great-grandchildren, actually they are the grandchildren of the Maji rebellion people. And here they have the same blood. They didn't extinguish the whole of Tanzania with their bullets. Samia Suluhu thinks that with her bullets, she's going to overcome Tanzania. We have lost so many lives in Tanzania. It's a terrible space to be in. And by the way, why does she have to be president? Because I have seen so many people die for one person to be head of state. Mpaka, she had to go and be sworn in a military barracks. Who does that? And then, for a country like Tanzania that has struggled with its economy for a long time, it's not a wealthy country. You look at now the new vehicles that have been brought for the presidential motorcade. I don't know whether you saw her when she was living in. State-of-the-art Range Rovers in a country that people are struggling to fix a meal. Yeah? I don't know what goes on in the heads of some of these human beings. But I wish to remind them that they need to look at the life we are celebrating, Raila Amolo Odinga, and see the simplicity that goes with you when you're going. He's there in his grave. What people are celebrating is the legacy. People are celebrating what he has done, his fight for the 2010 Constitution, all the good things that Raila Amolo Odinga did. Now, for people like Samia Suluhu, who is on a spree of primitive accumulation, and some of the leaders I'm seeing, like Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, they need to look at Baba, who is an enigma, and ask themselves, when they die, like now I hear at Mama Aida's is booked until January. Every day there's a delegation that wants to go there, and they are not going empty-handed. Some of these people, when they die, even cockroaches will not want to visit their graves because of some of the things that they are doing to people. Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, our people were in your country, detained for coming to say, look here, respect human rights. You know, human rights are universal. The right to life, the right to self-expression, those rights don't have borders. They are universal. And when we are fighting for those rights, nobody should tell us that Kenya ends here, Uganda begins here, Tanzania ends here, Kenya begins here. When we are fighting for human rights, it's like fighting for oxygen. These things are universal, and they must be allowed to flourish across the region. So we are disappointed as a people, and we hope that some of these leaders will wake up to the reality. And I wish to remind them, every day you wake up Mama Samia Suluhu, every day you wake up William Ruto, every day you wake up Yoweri Kaguta Museveni. Cast your eyes on Bondo and see an enigma who has rested. And people are there because it's his legacy they are interested in. In fact, they are not interested in any car he had, any money he had, nothing. They are there, they are even bringing material stuff to that home. Nyinyi zile siku mutakufa, what will people bring to your homes? Will people even want to come to your homes? I think that's the lesson we need to learn about this primitive accumulation that's going on with the leaders.
Okay, Maliba, as you come in, the leaders who have the opinion that, you know, Kenyan human rights activists are actually interfering with the politics of other countries, that, you know, their engagement in various acts jeopardize the sovereignty of those nations, perhaps in response to what Uganda's President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni jokingly said, that, you know, we had some of these experts in protests in fridges, quote unquote, after denying time and time again. Well, what's your analysis of how these issues are handled?
First of all, what's happening in Tanzania is actually very sad. Activists actually putting the number 3,000. 3,000 young people whose life was just cut short. To put it to context, Idi Amin once invaded Tanzania. For all that time that Idi Amin had invaded Tanzania until they were able to actually push him out, 1,500 Tanzanians were killed. But in 2 days, this administration under Samia Suluhu was able to take out an estimated 3,000 people, double what Idi Amin ever did. But be that as it may, it's important to contextualize why we as Kenyans sometimes think that it's important for us to raise voice and speak for others who are in similar struggles like the ones we've gone through or the ones we currently are going in. You know, some of these leaders, including Museveni here, the people, even CCM, the current administration in Kenya, and a lot of the current political leaders in the region are actually beneficiaries of colonialism. If colonialists hadn't come here and messed our way of life, these people would not be ruling us today. Secondly, whereas the government in Tanzania belongs to CCM, the people in Tanzania are our brothers, sisters, and neighbors. We've lived with them longer than colonialism has been, and we've lived with them longer than these boundaries. Just because white people came here the other day and then demarcated, actually those boundaries were drawn by pencil, we can therefore not actually say that things can actually go worse, and we do not say anything. Why do I say that? We know that injustice anywhere is injustice everywhere. If there is injustice in Kenya, there will be injustice in Tanzania, and there will be injustice in Uganda, in Rwanda, Burundi, and even South Sudan. You see what is happening in DRC. But just the most important thing is this, that our governments are now collaborating when they fight dissent. Besigye comes to Nairobi, and he is actually captured and abducted in Nairobi. He's taken to Uganda. Maria Sarungi, I think, she is captured in Kilimani, and we have to make a lot of noise before, otherwise she will actually have gone to Tanzania. So clearly there is a collaboration between our governments when it comes to stamping down on dissent. Once this government starts to collaborate, we as people have to collaborate to fight back. So, if Museveni does not want us in Kenya to be part and parcel of the struggle in Uganda, he should stop collaborating with the Kenyan government when he's stamping down on dissent, and when Kenyans are also going to Uganda to simply walk around. That was just a benchmarking trip by Njagi and Oyo. By the way, when President Museveni actually says that Oyo and Njagi are experts in riots, you know that is an ordinary Kenyan, because there are some proper people who can actually do riot strategies in this country. So when you actually call Njagi an expert in riots, then as in that's an ordinary Kenyan, you are calling all of us then experts in riots. But be that as it may, what is happening, since the administrations are actually cooperating and collaborating in bringing down dissent, they have no option but to meet all of us together as one, because then we will have to standardize the way we fight back. If I go to Tanzania, I will actually be captured and abducted. If you come to Kenya from Tanzania, you will be abducted. Same thing to if you're going to Uganda or you're coming to Kenya from Uganda. Therefore, as in it will go without saying that the rest of us, the civil society, the civilians, will actually have to collaborate and fight back. The other thing is this. If you look at the African government, let's just talk about all of the countries that were colonized. They have got three struggles that they have to go through. Number one is to fight against colonialism. All of us in Africa have fought against colonialism, and we now are independent countries. The second liberation that every African country must actually go through is the fight for good governance. Whether it's democracy or whatever way they want, that particular phase is important. Right. Then the third and final struggle that every country must have is actually economic empowerment. For we millennials and Gen Zs, we want economic empowerment and liberation in our lifetime. We will not keep on pushing it further. So, where you see the struggle being a serious one is that the administrations we have are still acting as brokers for the colonialists. They have not changed. Like in Tanzania, the biggest problem they have is that for the longest time, CCM has been serving on the goodwill of Nyerere. Nyerere had his own challenges because he was doing nation building for the first time. He had never built a country. Now, Nyerere built CCM in a way that can help him put together a country. After that, there is nothing CCM has done to change the lives of Tanzanians. Tanzania is where it is, even economically, because of Nyerere's goodwill and the efforts of individual people. Otherwise, immediately Mkapa came in, he turbocharged corruption, Kikwete did the same, and now Magufuli came in, he tried to stamp it down. Now the older order has come in, and it's now actually running that on a higher scale, and that is why those guys are refusing. And I saw Fanyamambo here saying that he mentioned about the Majimaji pricing. The reason why I insist that we have got a shared history with these people is because if you look at the Pare Pale Tanzania and our people in Taita Taveta, same people. Our Maasais are the same with the Maasais in Tanzania. The Luos in Tanzania are part and parcel of the Luos who came from this side. Okay. Same to do with the Kuria. As in these people, and by the way, you might not know this, Jesse, but we, the people from Western, when we hear the Haya speak, the Ha speak, the Sukuma speak, we get about 40 to 60% of what they speak. Our Sukuma na watu wengine ni Waluya tu, walipitia huko chini. So these people, and even the traditions and everything is the same. Right. So today, these administrations that are here courtesy of colonialism cannot tell us that all of a sudden we are so different. For example, half of my family is in Uganda. As in, if I speak today, I'm talking about my maternal side is entirely in Uganda, on the other side. So Museveni cannot then tell me that somehow I have no opinion on what happens in Uganda. These boundaries are benefiting those people. And that is why, in places like Tanzania, for example, you will realize that the administration is obsessed with creating enemies. Somehow, they talk about external enemies so much. Look at this. In our Kenyan instance, Tanzania is the only country we share a border with where we do not have a problem with the border. Our border was demarcated and completed. That is the only side. On the Ugandan side, we have got a challenge. At the Sudan border, we have got a challenge. On the Ethiopian side, we still have got a challenge. On the Somali side, we have got a challenge. Right. But on the Tanzanian side, we've demarcated. So for us, the Kenyan defense posture, Tanzania cannot be a threat. It's only a partner. But you will hear a lot of Majitu stories coming from that end about how adui anaweza toka hii side ingine. It's their way of trying to think that the people have to depend on them because there is an enemy coming out. Those strategies are not going to work, especially with this generation. So I saw Senator Cherargei urging leaders from other countries to finya wa Kenya who go to quote unquote cause problems. That I want to dare say Senator Cherargei to do the same. Kama amesimama hapo kwa hiyo statue ya Tomboya in town, he can. In fact, fanya mambo, we should organize a forum and invite Cherargei to come and repeat those things. He can only repeat those things when he's speaking in safety of his county at home in a church. Otherwise, he cannot repeat that anywhere else. Because if we do not work together as a people of the region, we will be led by dictators. And unfortunately, since they are working together, we have no alternative as a people, but we will work together to ensure that that dictatorship does not go anywhere.
Senator whatever.
Cherargei.
That one. He has said despicable things to us as a nation. He was told to apologize. He said he has nothing to apologize about. We will remind you as Kenyans, you need to apologize. You cannot wake up and say that it is okay for people to be butchered in that particular way and come and say that once you send them here, we shall finish with them. Senator, you need to understand one thing. Nobody has a monopoly of violence. What Kenyans have done is that they have cheerfully submitted their ability to be on the streets and to cause violence to government, so that government carries the instruments of violence on our behalf. And then government is able to control those who we feel are a threat to society. But from where we sit, now the biggest threat we have to society is leaders like himself. Because he thinks that there are people who have a right to exist more than others, and that there are people who have got a right to come and exterminate others and finish them and bring them to nothing, and nothing should be done to him. Senator, we are telling you, you're out of order, and every other person who thinks like you is out of order. The people in Tanzania have their right to speak. There's something called the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And all of us are called upon. It's like in the Bible, the Great Commission. All of us are called upon to help in implementation, in upholding, in speaking about, in preaching, in making sure that the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, it's not just a mere set of words, but a promise that is realizable. So we shall all come out, because the right to life, the right to dignity, the right of freedom from torture, the right of freedom of expression will not be taken away by anybody in this country. We will fight for our right to have these things. And we are telling them, sometimes, you know what they want is an environment of peace, regardless of what that peace costs you. I keep telling Kenyans when we have demonstrations, they tell us that we lose 2 billion shillings in a day. But on a normal day, we lose 11 billion on e-Citizen. On a normal day, we lose 104 billion on SHA. On a normal day, we wake up and we are told 45 billion that was on e-Citizen cannot be traced. So we are telling you, Cherargei, that sometimes when we are agitating for our rights, we lose much less than when we give you peace to loot from us.
Okay. Yes, I had forgotten something kindly. I needed to say this, that one of the biggest problems I think our neighbors in the south have is that the last time Tanzania had a parliament was in 2016. After that, they have never had a parliament. At least for us, we went and cancelled our parliament. So whatever those guys do on Parliament Road in Nairobi really doesn't matter, because people already went there, they took legitimacy. Whatever they do does not count. We no longer care. But Tanzanians have not had parliament since 2016, because all they have are praise singers, people who are there specifically to serve CCM. And they have, at least for Uganda, they are lucky they have got a parliament. The judiciary they don't have. What they do have there is just an extension of something that looks like a judiciary. You remember in the case of Oyo and Jagi, the judiciary even told the guys who are talking about the habeas corpus that you cannot squeeze water out of a rock. As in, those guys do not have a court. In Tanzania, they do not have both a constitution and they do not have a parliament. What they have there, and now it's far much worse, because out of 270, they've brought in new people again who completely are serving the party. And why do I say that? I say that because in Tanzania, a political party has a country. In other places, countries have got political parties. CCM treats Tanzania as a branch of one of its programs. So instead of the police service, for example, serving the people, it serves the party. Instead of the intelligence, for example, serving the people, it serves the party, first of all. So CCM has made TZ or Tanzania in its own image, as opposed to Tanzania having political parties that are in its own image. So we are at a place where those young people do not understand. Mwalimu Nyerere's goodwill around CCM is already over. These guys have no new way. So they will come up with a lot of stories, external people. I can see now they are using even spin masters who are saying even Rwanda is involved in destabilizing them. They are talking about Zambia on the south. Kenyans have always been the boogeyman when they actually are talking about external interference. Come on, if anything, we are not competing on the same level. We just want to have the same level of rights. Okay. These are our brothers, these are our sisters. And we as Kenyans, by the way, know one thing, that if Tanzania prospers, we prosper. They've also been lied to a lot of times that they have got a lot of food. They had demonstrations for one day and there was no food. And that is a lie the administration has lied to them. It's not a sustainable one. So for all that it's worth, I think the only good thing that has happened to Tanzania is the revolution that has happened, because they've not had an election. Okay. If you will allow me a minute, I will tell you one thing. That number one, Tanzania did not have a voter register. I don't know whether you know that. They say they had 37.6 million voters, but if you look at their adult population, it's only 32. So where did they get these 37 million voters? Secondly, their INEC is chosen by one side. They work, they serve the party. Number three, these guys counted 32 million votes in 48 hours without electricity, without internet, and when there was a curfew. As in, that is not possible. They did not even factor in the votes that we saw being thrown around and everything else. Number four, if you were to look at the voter turnout, Magufuli got 12 million votes, 12.3, 12.5 million votes. Okay. But Samia gets 31 million votes. Samia got 19.5 million more than Magufuli. I don't know whether you see the joke. That is not an election, it was a selection. So literally, what is in Tanzania at the moment, tomorrow parliament will be working in, will actually be sworn in, but that is not a parliament, that Tanzania's parliament, it's actually CCM's parliament. So they do not have an elected and legitimate government, they do not have a parliament. I think what is left of them is to continue with this struggle, because that country is changed forever. With 3,000 or rather 3,000 lives going down, that country is changed and changed forever. Those young people will not go back.
Okay, briefly here.
Yes, there's something I wanted to mention to people. And this is the story of Tunisia in 2010. You know, people don't know, many people have forgotten what cost Tunisia to have a president who had served for 23 years. He fled the country. There was a hawker, the kawaida hawkers you see in town, and he was roughed up by the kanjo in Tunisia. And things were so bad, they spilled his fruits all over town, and he tried to appeal to the governor, and nobody could listen to him. He poured paraffin on himself and lit himself. And that act, within 1 month, the Tunisian head of state had fled, and he had been there for 23 years. Some of these leaders think that you need a violent, big issue, a big upheaval. This is a guy who sacrificed his own life. He set himself ablaze. And the whole Arab area felt it. There was an uprising. The second lesson that I want us to learn is the lesson that Uganda needs to learn. Uganda is where Egypt was. Egypt is this country that had militarized everything. In fact, the supermarket sellers were people from the army. Like you'd go to a supermarket and the army was involved. Everywhere you went, even at gas stations. So people said that this Arab nonsense, because people were calling it nonsense, the dictators, can happen anywhere else, but it cannot happen in Egypt. They were asked why. They said, the army is so everywhere in Egypt. How will you be able to have an uprising in Egypt? And when things started going haywire, the president told them, I want you to shoot the civilians. What he forgot is when you over-militarize a nation, the army becomes, it has too many people plus the police. It therefore means every police officer and every army officer can see someone they are related to in the crowd that they are supposed to shoot. So when they were told to shoot, they wondered, do I shoot my nephew? Do I shoot my niece? Do I shoot my mother? Do I shoot my uncle? Every person who had a gun could see a person they knew in the crowd. That is exactly where Uganda is. Uganda has invested so much in the forces. They have recruited so many young people to join their police force and their army. They have made sure that even national intelligence is everywhere, including amongst shoe shiners, because he's afraid of being thrown out. One day he will give orders, and there will be no people to effect those orders, because the people upon whom they're supposed to effect the orders are all related to the security agencies. When you over-militarize a state, what you do is you create a situation where even your orders cannot be obeyed. Okay. So everything they think, and let us think that stupidly, you will see. Samia Suluhu is going to recruit very many young people and put them into the army and to the police force. That will turn Tanzania into another Egypt, where every person holding a gun sees a person they would rather not kill. And that is what will bring down these dictators.
Is there room for dialogue in Tanzania? I've seen the president calling for dialogue, trying to chart a way forward.
No. How? There is only one meaningful dialogue that should happen in Tanzania. And that's what we were calling for. They should have delayed these elections or postponed them to January or February. And then have every other person who wanted to vie given a chance to vie. That's number one. Number two, the international community must be allowed to participate as observers. Number three, the internet must not be switched off. That is the only circumstances under which a dialogue would be meaningful. But you don't go rob an election, kill people, bury them, coronate yourself in a military barracks, then free the opposition leaders, and then say, in fact, even mutilate parliament. Out of the about 278, only 2 are from the opposition. And then you want to have a dialogue with who about what? Keep your presidency.
Actually, when you speak about Uganda and militarizing, you know, in Uganda, literally every villager can march and shoot a gun. Or rather can march and then shoot. I was in Mogadishu at the time when the Ugandans were actually doing it. I remember at that particular point, there was a very popular guy called Lokech. We used to call him the Lion of Mogadishu. He literally helped and stabilized Mogadishu. Uganda has got some very good military men, has got very disciplined men. Of course, you can see bad manners here and there. There is one spoiled kid there who still makes a lot of problems. But then the professional bit of it is a lot of it. So if you think that the military can actually threaten the citizens when literally there is an oversurplus, that is why Uganda has got a big population of mercenaries that it's giving out there. For those of us who've worked in hotspots, you find that the private military companies, the PMCs that guard the places where we live, they've always been either Ugandans or Burundians. So literally, there is no one to threaten with firepower in Uganda. Every villager knows, they call it imundu, a gun, what that is. So I do not think that that is going to be sustainable in the long run, because even musicians like Chagulanyi now, they can face those guns because literally it's a culture. That they've done that. In Tanzania, the biggest problem is actually the intelligence. TIS, the TISS, it's a Gestapo. It works like our special branch, as it were long time ago. These guys have over time created enemies until they have no more enemies to create. Now, they have become the threat to the people, because initially you would be told, oh, we have got enemies, of course, from the north. There was always the lie about Kenyans wanting Tanzania to go down. And like I've told you, Tanzania is the country that we actually think is a partner, because we do not even have a border dispute with them. Along the Kenyan border, 50 kilometers inside into Kenya, there is no single military installation on that side. You cannot say that of all the other boundaries that we have. It is the safest boundary for our people. It is the most clarified one. And for us, we know that out of business, if Tanzania is stable, we prosper on this particular end. Okay. So Kenya does not see Tanzania as a threat at any level. But you will see the people who run the state there have been, of course, they've become brokers of capital. Tanzania is actually a proper case of capital capture of a state. Mm-hmm. So you have got a few business people who have captured CCM, and now CCM simply is creating the people, turning them into their own. Yani wamebadilisha Tanzania imekuwa kama shamba yao. Hao wamekuwa nyapara, na wale watu ambao wanapata wananunua mazao na pesa na kujifaidi use CCM. Okay. You spoke about if there is dialogue.
Yeah, briefly.
Dialogue with who? And by the way, if there is some room for dialogue, but so long as Tundu Lissu remains inside, they are running out of a person who can actually speak on behalf of the people with them.
Okay.
So probably there's a little window. That little window is that you must have a spokesperson. That spokesperson is actually Tundu Lissu, and he is in prison. Today he was supposed to be in court. He didn't show up. They released Heche in a very funny way today. They had taken him in for, and they are learning the Kenyan script, where if somebody becomes a problem, you then take them to court for if treason, terrorism, those charges that are very fluid to actually prove. And Tanzania has no constitution. Unless they go back to Warioba's draft, they have no constitution.
All right.
Yeah. Because what they have today is what Nyerere left.
Okay.
And these guys, CCM decides as in, let me say this properly.
Finally, as you finalize, yeah.
Tanzania's current constitution is written in pencil. CCM rubs what they don't like and put there, because CCM does with the constitution as it likes. So you cannot then say that is a constitution. All the reforms they want, whether it is the electoral reform, the constitutional reform, people can speak about bigger issues like the union issues between Zanzibar and Tanganyika, but the real problem is the constitution. Okay. This constitution, CCM changed it to ensure that it's written in pencil. Wanafuta ile kitu hawapendi.
Well, and we equally heard that there's no reprieve in the courts once the electoral body...
The INEC has declared you cannot go and appeal.
Yeah.
And even in CCM, by the way, this is not just a problem with the people who are not in CCM. In CCM itself, once you start to have different ideas, Pole Pole is out, no one knows where he is.
Okay.
January Makamba, for example, even in CCM, you run at the party's pleasure.
Okay.
That if they don't like you, well, the people can say they want you. But some committee sits elsewhere and they say we don't want January Makamba because he's too presidential, he's too ambitious, so we put him away.
You're forced out.
So it's hii kitu inakula wale watu wako CCM na wale wenye wako nje. The only way is to have a new constitution and to have a fresh election.
Interesting. I think that's a good place to wrap up this particular discussion. So much focus on the developments happening in Tanzania and Uganda, which will have an upcoming general election next year. We'll definitely keep you updated. Of course, as Standard and members of the Fourth Estate will keep you up to speed on what exactly is transpiring in the neighboring countries and put it in context in terms of how you're affected back at home as well. Fanyamambo Kinuthia, asante sana for your time, Wakili, equally joined by Maliba Arnold, the public policy analyst, and the party leader, Progress Plus Alliance. Asante ni sana for your contributions right here. That brings us to the end of tonight's edition of KTN Prime. Thank you so much for watching. Maresha Witi is our sign language interpreter, and I am Jesse Rogers. Enjoy the rest of your viewing.